So if you're purchasing a vehicle or you've had a vehicle for a while and it's getting to be a little bit older of a car, and you're wondering, is it okay to just have liability insurance on your vehicle? The short answer is yes. Essentially, you don't even need to have a vehicle to have liability insurance. For those of you that are worried about driving other people's cars or just the general liability, if you injure someone, if you damage their car, anything that you're liable for, in those scenarios, you can purchase a non-owner's liability policy just to cover you. In the car insurance world, if you don't care about the car or the value of the car and it's easy for you to replace, then you don't necessarily have to have liability insurance. When you look up on the Michigan's website, they're going to tell you that the state minimum coverage is $250,000 liability per person, $500,000 liability per accident. Now, a lot of you are in the comments below and are going to say, wait a minute, that's not the minimums. We're not talking about the minimums. We're talking about the state required coverages. Whenever you go outside of that 250/500 limit, you have to sign away different waivers that you're going to accept those coverages. Same thing happens for what we call personal injury protection. I'll go a little bit further into depth on the personal injury protection here in just a moment. Part of that liability piece is having those coverages that you can cover for other people, their vehicles, and yourself. You're just excluding the third piece, which is your vehicle. The biggest thing that you want to be concerned about is, yes, if you do have liability on a vehicle and you don't want to cover the value of it, is there even a cost difference? Sometimes having comprehensive or adding collision as well isn't that much more expensive. So it really just depends on the fit you are for the right company. That's where the agent comes into play, or at least knowing who you should be with is the biggest way to look at this. Think of it as a profile. There's all of these risks that you can add to an insurance policy. What kind of car? What's the theft rate? What's the location you live in? What's the insurance score of the person? And that insurance score breaks off into multiple pieces. How many claims do they have? What's their credit score? What's like all of those pieces add up to an insurance score. Are they driving 20,000 miles? Are they driving it to work? There's all of these things that make this profile, and that profile is what determines partially the price, but mostly which company gives you the best rate. That's why we always recommend checking with an independent agent like ourselves. That's what we do. Essentially, we shop multiple companies. If you are looking for something like that, I'll put in the link in the description below where you can actually do a quote with us. We focus mainly on Michigan, although we are in a few other states. So having the liability insurance is probably the most important piece of your insurance policy. It's also part of the more expensive piece of the policy because, once again, that's things that they can't control the price. They know the price of your car, they know what the worth is and the value, and so they can determine the price really easily if they had to total loss that car. A company also knows their average claim in your area. That means it's not difficult for them to quickly understand the cost and risk that they're taking on by having that. You also have a deductible, so having that deductible lowers not necessarily the risk, but lowers the share of the risk. You're going to out-pocket a certain amount where they'll out-pocket the rest. Essentially, don't feel bad if that's the way you're going. I personally have had tons of vehicles with just what we call PLPD. It's personal liability and property damage. It's the required coverages that the state wants you to carry, not the minimums. It's what they require you to have versus covering a car that you don't have a value with. You can easily replace. The biggest thing that you want to learn is the personal injury protection because that plays one of the larger factors on your insurance policy. It gets a little bit confusing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend that you watch our full personal injury protection video here. If you're new to the car insurance world in general in Michigan, I'm going to link our Car Insurance 101 where it goes a lot more in depth on what coverages are recommended, what you should carry, and what are the options available to you. Go ahead and check either one of those out. Otherwise, I'm Mark with Valor Insurance Group. I'll see you soon.